Bonjour toutes et tous et bienvenue au Festival de l'Histoire de l'Art en 2021. Et voilà, aujourd'hui, donc, je voudrais présenter Madame Yuki Onodera, la photographe japonaise, et puis alliée de Zohar, Madame alliée de Zohar, et le professeur de l'université de Tel-Aviv. C'est ça. Voilà, donc je voudrais vous présenter un peu rapidement la biographie de Madame Onodera. Et donc, elle est née à Tokyo et a installé son atelier à Paris en 1993 et exposé depuis lors son travail dans le monde entier. Et elle se pose la question de savoir ce qui est la photographie et ce que la photographie peut faire. Voilà, donc aujourd'hui, à travers ce dialogue, elles vont nous faire découvrir pour le monde de Madame Onodera. Voilà. Ah, arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much, Mizuma-san, for the introduction. I really apologize that I have to speak in English. My French is nearly zero, and my Japanese is not professional enough to do that, so I opted for the English, and I hope the audience will be able to follow. If you have any questions after my presentation, you're most welcome to approach me and ask me in a more unofficial way. And also later on, I will be giving a presentation about Japanese women photographers in recent years, so you're most welcome to join us on the second presentation as well, and my apologies again for speaking in English today. So today I will introduce and we will have a conversation with Onodera Yuki, or one of the most brilliant photographers of contemporary art in Japan. And Yuki-san is living actually in Paris, so she's better than me in anything to do with French or Japanese, so feel free if you don't understand anything to approach Yuki. And Yuki was born in 1962 and came to Paris in 1993, and she showed her work all around the world. She's really one of the most famous photographers in Japan, and she's been showing regularly in galleries in Paris, in France, all over, in Tokyo, in Japan, other places. Shanghai has been on her list for many exhibitions in recent years. And I'm sure if you Google her name and you look for her works, you will find that Yuki is very well known all over the place. But today we will concentrate on several series that she created over the years, and I will pose some questions that I hope Yuki-san and I can discuss the different aspects so that we can get through her career and her oeuvre, her different types of works that she will do. So to be able to introduce to you the work of Onodera Yuki, the great photographer, Aki-san, who is the partner of Yuki, will give us a stream of images so that we can see the different series. And after that, I will pose some questions regarding each of the series that we're talking about. So can we please see some images?
Merci d'être venu. Je suis très plaisir. C'est une occasion de dialogue avec Ayette Zohar. Et je remercie aussi pour l'ensemble du Festival d'Histoire d'Art. Alors, until now, I worked more than 30 series. So today, I present some series by the slideshow. So this is portrait hand clothes. All motif are second-hand clothes. And I took a picture against the sky, cloudy sky in Paris. I opened the window and hung clothes like they are self-standing. So it seems the body evaporated. Only clothes stay with the skin. I photographed them by middle-sized camera. who capture small detail of memory, who was wear this garment before. Each one have a different sky, and I called portrait this work, even if absence of person. Next, P and I, portrait non identifié. These faces are not exist because I used someone's face which in the newspaper or magazine. I cut out their elements, eyes, nose, the mouth, and then I constructed the element on the foundation of the clay, and I took a photo. I purposed that out of the focus them while shooting and printing. They escape from real portrait, far from original person. Look at the window. The motif are houses, building, which I took picture in Tokyo and outside Tokyo. They are building are not historic, just short time to exist only one generation. I photographed them in the night. These houses which are full light, inside are as contour of camera obscura. When I was printing them, I used the mask all around the building to disappear in the darkness. I present all chronological. So how to make a pearl? I put one glass bowl in the marble, the marble inside my camera. Then I went outside to shooting on event crowd. The marble moved inside camera, which difficult to know how to expose on the film. After I developed the film, the half of image are hidden by the shadow of the marble, and the reflection of marble became like a sun. The daylight became as night. All print are 2 meters of high. Transvest. Work of silhouette, but I did not take a photo directly of the person. I recycled the person which images which in magazine or books. I cut out their silhouette and photographed with the stage that I made and shooting by backlighting. Then inside the silhouette, I collaged many different diverse images and all time and all over the world. Images are between visible and invisible. This work go and return between digital and analog and finally printed by negative film. It have a much process of working in the dark room. Roma, 2 places named Roma, but not Roma of Italy. I photographed by stereo camera. The theme of moving travel. Firstly, I went to one Roma in Sweden, took photo by only one lens, then moved to another Roma in Spain, took photo by another lens, put the same film which I already exposed in Sweden. As a result, 2 places coupled by chance. They look like color print, but no, they are hand-painted on the back and black and white print by the technique of early 20th century, like a postcard. 11th finger, hidden camera. The gesture of people protection of portrait and privacy light. I made camouflage cover for my camera like this. how nobody knows that I take a photo. So I must take it without looking the finder. Of course, I did not ask any permission for them, so need to cover the face. I made elegant mask for them, used black paper, cutting out many motifs, and used the technique of photogram for cover. While print process, I put the black mask on the photographic paper and projection light by image. The mask became white color and the image appears through a lot of small holes that represent another story for absence of their face and catch their gesture. 12 speed. This is my first still life photograph. Imitate a composition of 18th century's still life painting. I had shooting the forest of here, contemporary. That's the mirror which center of image reflects green of the forest by 12 angles different. This still life included nature, la nature dans la nature morte. The obvious feature of the photography is its repeating. These 12 photos are almost the same, only reflection of mirror are different. The background, the pink color is another complementary color of the forest green. World is not small. This idea came from the first photography of the world, Nicephore Niepce, taken 1827. These letters are name of the place which exists in the world. I choose many place names that are not famous names. I made myself this kind of road sign panel and installed it in the room which have one window in center. The panel are like actor in the theater who travel without moving, without imagining any image. Of travel only power of the name, it's able to travel to before the birth of the photography. My brief twist. This work by technique of collage that I started from some years ago. This photograph configured many different movements of the body. I used the fashion model's picture of magazine, which are extreme pose. I cut out them and separated by many pieces. Then I constructed the image by collage and took photo different elements. I printed each piece in my dark room and collage on canvas. They are very big size, more than 3 meters of high, and it is very physical work. Maybe I can say it's a choreography for a photography. Study image à la sauvette. This I pick up pet bottle which propose many problems of our life, actually life. I block them and make their new appearance, that kind of sculpture. This transparent material can be exist by reflecting. So while shooting, I used many mirrors for his presence. After print them, I painted the amount of the liquid splatter on the photograph. It is decisive moment, but not captured by camera. Just the moment was added by fictive hand painting. The architectural body and events, they are very big size of collage of 8 meters. Relation between architecture and photography. In this work, I tried architecture and events composed together by collage on canvas. I collected the image of elements of building that existed today and existed in the past. Like a fashion model, I constructed from their fragment, which to fictional new body and space, then dividing this architectural body by documentary photos. This immobile architecture suspended by the time and space. This is my most latest work, collective work. I selected these photographs. I selected 3 photographs. I cut out square section and swapped these between of them. Just a simple way, we can look one center of image, move to next center and to next. So this triptych photo never ends. Image circulate infinitely. In this work, many important motifs that I did not notice when I took the photo suddenly take an unexpected presence. I did drip painting for this series for combining different these photographs be in an universe. So this is only 14 from the series from my works.
Thank you, Yuki. It was very interesting. Just an overview of her different projects. So if you will join us on the next presentation, you will see that my overview of Japanese photography, contemporary photography, is that for many photographers, the question is myself. They direct the camera in different ways to the presence either of the photographer or the people around that reflect in a performative way. But there's also another group or another aspect of Japanese photography, which is the research of the medium itself. It's self-reflective. It is post-conceptual photography that looks at the medium and tries to understand what is photography about, how does photography operate in the world, how do we understand photography, because as you probably know, the word for photography in Japanese is shashin, which means a copy of reality or a copy of truth, and that is a very demanding name. We have to negotiate that. We have to understand what does it mean to be a copy of reality. So I think a lot of photographers in Japan are questioning this idea. And Onodera, Yuki, is one of them. She's not so much dealing with the direct image of herself or the people around her, which you find a lot in documentary photography, but she's actually a researcher using a camera. She's using the camera as a research tool to look into the big question. What is photography? How do we understand the photographic image? And how does it operate in the world? And therefore, my questions to Yuki will be based on this notion of understanding what is photography and how does photography operate, and also going back into the history of the medium and understanding how the image of the world was conceived in Japanese culture, first without the apparatus of the camera and then with the apparatus of the camera. So there is a long history, even to the word shashin, the word itself, which is prior to the invention of photography. And so certain points that we're going to look into in our conversation will operate against this idea. So the very first question I proposed for Yuki-san was about silhouette. It's a French word, you know it. And silhouette is something that repeats in Yuki's oeuvre, in her work, in many ways. We had the very first transvest, which is a series of images. Then we had, you have to remind me the series name, the one that she had, the paper cuts.
11th finger.
invisible finger. So 11th finger, sorry, that operates as another kind of a silhouette, a shadow or something that blocks the light. Now, if we want to research photography, the question is, what is light and how does it operate? And what is the reaction or the relationship between the light and the light-sensitive structure or materiality of the paper? So the silhouette functions as a kind of a block, something that blocks, and then once it blocks, we can have a separation of the light on this side and the photograph on this side and the block in between them. It's a kind of an extra layer that divides the relationship between the final photograph and the light source, and the silhouette is in between them, kind of making us aware of this relationship. And I pointed out to Yuki, do you have the OTIs?
Yes.
So I pointed out to Yuki that actually silhouettes exist in the history of Japanese prints, also very famous in France, the prints. But there is a series by a guy called Utagawa Ochiai, and he created these silhouettes. And guess what? Do you know how he calls them? You can see it written on the side. He called them shashin. And this is from the 1820s, right?
Yes.
And he's actually doing specific actors in the kabuki theater. He's making their silhouettes, and there's a did you put several of them? Do you have? You can see the very accurate differences that he puts to each person. And these silhouettes for him is the accurate shadow of a specific person. So something, the minute nuances between the silhouettes are functioning like the shadow of the real person, i.e., a photograph, because this is a shadow of light without the operation of fixing the light, which will make the photography through chemistry. But already the idea of silhouette as a true reflection of a real person is there in the process of printing. And I think this is exciting. And I wanted probably Yuki to reflect more about the idea of the silhouette.
Yeah, it is very interesting question because no one have ever asked me the relationship between Ochiai Yoshiku. He is a 19th century's ukiyo-e artist, and my work transbest. Yes, it's interesting. So he was born in 1833, and the daguerreotype announced of 1839. So even if very far Japan, the several photo studio open in 1860. Yes. So I think it's interesting for me because while he continued painting in Japanese painting, at the same time he wanted to express something new technology, new visual, like as photography. By hand. By hand.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So for me, it's interesting because the gap of two illustration, because main is visual, looks like photography, but the portrait of the face is far from reality. So it's interesting, he included something new visual for him. And sorry, my transbest wasn't influenced by Yoshi Ochiai. And
it's a reference, it's not an influence.
For me, the silhouette is by only one line, contoured. And for me, the silhouette is a trace of shadow. It means real things, not the whole production. So this point, I'm very interested in silhouette. But for my work, transbest, I was thinking the shadow is original of the painting from Greek mythology. So I used the shadow, but shadow is also kind of silhouette. So I not
shadow is silhouette. Silhouette is created by shadow. Yeah.
It's the Greek mythology coming from the trace of the shadow of her lover. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the trace. For me, it's very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to mention that silhouette and shadow and trace are items that can be interlaced, because each one of them is a kind of a block. It blocks light. And the way it blocks light is the way we get the image because of this blockage. Because in photography, we normally think of the light returning from the object. So this is how our eye is functioning. We collect the rays returning from the object, and the camera is imitating the structure of the eye. It collects the light returning from the object. But if you have something that blocks, you just have the light returning around the object. And so we will see later, I have some images of traces also, and footprints and handprints and stuff like that, which all function as the very prior image. And I just be a little bit philosophical, if you don't mind. There is a great British researcher in the late 19th century. His name's Charles Peirce. And Peirce actually divided all the images in the world to three categories. So the first category, the two other categories are the icon and the symbol. But the first category is the index, which means the trace or the silhouette or the shadow. That's something that is being created by direct touch, is the first image. So when we say, it's exactly what was with Ochi-ai, you mentioned that. So we have a trace with a shadow, and then we have the image, which is an icon that he's drawing, which is supposed to be similar to that person, which he has a direct, shashin-like. Photography, or something which has no mediation. So the big thing about the trace and the shadow is the silhouette. It does not need the negotiation between the mind of the artist or the idea of how to put the camera. It is directly registering itself onto the light sensitive or the block or even the mud. We do footprints in the mud. So it's a direct print of the foot in the mud. It has no negotiation. There's no in-between interpretation. So I think in Transvest and in the 11th Finger, and there was another series with the
silhouette,
with the lights, small lights inside.
Light inside.
The color ones.
I just wanted to show the first sketch of the Transvest. Because that was not a human silhouette. Yeah. Because
what was it?
Yes. That is not human silhouette. It is more abstract. That's kind of insect.
Oh, this is the one?
Yeah, insect or something monster.
Ooh.
So it's the first time to present this my sketch here. So for me, the silhouette is something mimetism. So
mimesis, yeah.
So I thought, for example, the word unsexed word, mimetism in the unsexed word, and mimicry in the fashion world. Those different words combined to be in this series Transvest.
Wonderful. So I wanted also, because you mentioned the insects, so I spoke already about this to Yuki, but I will mention to the audience. There's a wonderful research by a Japanese researcher named Fukuoka Maki. She's a professor at Leeds these days. And she was actually doing a genealogy of the word shashin. She was trying to figure out why this word was selected to become the word for photography in Japanese. And she went back to the early 19th century and she found out that it was linked to prints of plants that were evidently present in Japan because the knowledge about these plants came from Chinese and from Dutch sources, but nobody knew if these plants exist in Japan. Once they were able to prove the plant exists in Japan, they printed them directly with ink, and that was called shashin. This is the first time the word shashin was closed. So it keeps us on a loop. It's the insect or the plant. It's the direct printing on the paper. It's the light printing on the paper. It's the trace. It's the silhouette. It's the index. So all these aspects, whether an insect or a plant or a silhouette or footprint in the mud, they're all about this certain thing. Direct touch of an object that registered itself and not a photograph of returning light. So I think this is a very interesting way of researching how photography becomes that Yuki has used through her career in different points to return to this primordial idea of how photography becomes. This is specifically exciting for me to find out.
That for me, that is very interesting. What is a photography? What is this, the technology of invention of 19th century's media? So those kind of questions, all from first, I always question and creating for my work. Yeah.
Okay, I have a few more things to say about this specific aspect, but I think it's better we go on to other series so that we can probably proceed with some more ideas. We can proceed with some more ideas. So the second question I had to Yuki is concerning the very first series of the used clothes that she had. And this is an exciting series because for me, it is something about memory and again, something about the traces of the body. It's not just, taking a dress from a boutique and putting it up, but it's a used garment. And so it has certain memory in it. And also looking at the history and the breadth of Japanese photography, the idea of used clothes with specific memory is also there. And while for Yuki, the clothing she had selected are not specific, they're coming from secondhand shops, but we don't know who was the owner. I brought as an example two very famous photographers. The first one is Tsuchida Hiromi, and the second one is Ishiuchi Miyako, both photographed in Hiroshima archive in the museum, and they took the clothing that were left after the atomic bomb and being saved in the archive. And Ishiuchi actually extended. Her project started from the photography of her passing mother. She took every item in her personal belongings and photographed them. And that was what she was showing in the Venice Biennale in 2005. Very large enlarged photographs of each and every very intimate items also of her mother's. And after she did the project in Venice, she was invited to Hiroshima, and then she also went to Frida Kahlo's archive. So each and every item in Ishiuchi's oeuvre, we know exactly who is the person, whether her mother or the people from Hiroshima or Frida. So I wanted Yuki-san to reflect on this idea of if you have specific person or if the garment is anonymous, we don't know who wore it, and what is the relationship that you are experiencing between these two aspects?
When my previous work before portrait second-hand clothes, I installed the whiteboard in the landscape, in the indoor environment like this. So I was thought my next series about human. So, but not directly portrait of somebody human. I wanted something related with people. So finally, I came up with the idea of second-hand clothes, then second-hand clothes. So when I was planning this idea, there was Christian Boltanski's show in Paris. Its name is Dispersion, a frigo in Paris. So I went to visitor and bought one bag, 10 francs, and brought many second-hand clothes. And then in my studio, I thinking, so the Boltanski toujours show with a mass.
Yeah, actually in Echigotsumari, he had 6 tons.
6 tons
So, of used clothing.
Instead present in mass, I prefer to take each one focus to individual history and memory. So I took, and then how to took this picture, I wanted to do something daily life. So finally, I choose cloudy sky in Paris. So the background I added the sky. When I was living in Montmartre. So when I opened the window, there is a sky in front of me. So I just hang and take a picture, waiting in the sky change, exactly nice harmony with the clothes and the sky. So I think great big difference with the Ishiuchi works, because all her garment is identified, the histoire and the name of person. And it is clearly we can look, because she choose every series, the background very minimum. For example, is transmitted the light
table,
or white color. And contrary, my works added more element at the sky. But I think that is a motif of passivity became to activity. That is my interest too, because I don't want the object, finished object, object something activeness. So in this series, I used in the sky, and other works, this can until now, I think I never used it something identified. Identified something, the object identified which name, the data, name or date, something. So indexicality. So I expected those kind of the identified matter. I expected I'm not take for my work. So this is also another reason. But I think it's something the photography, when finished, the photography go away more. So for me, it is important for add something element more than object.
I'm so glad you mentioned Christian Boltanski, because as you know, Christian Boltanski is looking into the memory of the Holocaust. And the Holocaust is a moment in modern history when humans lost their individuality to become mass destruction. In this specific case, the Nazi machine was looking into how to destruct as many people as possible in industrial scale. Now, when Boltanski brings this, as I said, in Echigo Tsumari, it's a triennale in northern Japan. So he created in, what's the name of the museum? I forgot now. In Tokyo, forgot now the name. At Kinare. In Kinare Museum, they have like a big courtyard, like here, and he brought these shuffles to take 6 tons of garments and put them, really taking something industrial about something that we know. We pay a lot of attention. What am I wearing today? How does it match? Everything, you know, is very particular with our relationship with our garments. But the mass that he created, the industrial scale with the clothing, is yeah. So he's actually very critical and very painful about the loss of human life, human identity, human dignity. Everything personal was lost there. And this is what his art is talking about. And I'm so glad that you mentioned him, because you're able to take one piece from that industrial scale and give it life again and give it, you know, personalization and identification and identity and individuality and make it rise again as singular and unique. And also by taking it with the sky, I think you have this kind of memory of loss, something that was lost, something that has died, something that is rising, ghostly. You know, it's like, it's uncanny in this, because it's not the actual person in the garment, but it's the memory that is floating up, and it's the clothing that you took from the pile and you gave it its individuality again, which is very exciting, very emotional, and very sensitive way of relating to these masses of industrial scale, give it the individuality. For me, it's a very exciting and very touching moment to realize this power of these images. Thank you. Misuma-san, do we have to finish now? Some point?
So I want, she had a question about the Yukichi Fukuzawa.
Okay, please do.
That is a very special theory.
So I will just briefly say, in 1885, one of Japan's leading intellectuals at the time wrote a text which was titled in Japanese, Datsu Aron, which translates Leaving Asia. And that text was written in light of Japan's modernity and the idea that Japan is now proceeding to become European and it doesn't need Asia. Asia is backwards. Asia is not developed anymore. Asia is sinking. Japan is looking forward to modernity. So Japan must leave Asia behind and become modern, that is European. Now, Yuki-san is actually going back to China and working a lot with different galleries in Shanghai, Beijing, etc. And I asked her, what do you think about Idi Aron? How to go back to Asia?
I think this, the theory that alone leave from Asia enter to Europe, it as bad as virus. I think this this is so harmful. It to be into the incorporated DNA of Japanese people. That's really so. And the problem of his perception of history, the education of Japan in history is worse and worse. That is problem. So, the big problem was Japan never apologized clearly in the official place. So that is why my first travel to China, I'm a little blooming. Yeah. But when I arrived there, into China and working with the Chinese people, they are really warmly welcome. And I think it's not superficial, the attitude. It's real, I think it's real warmly. And until now, I'm present continue exhibiting there already 15 years. And I meet some Chinese artists who say, I'm influenced by your show 15 years ago. So I'm very happy. So this relationship with, yeah.
This is fantastic to hear. So I think Yuki-san is one of the ambassadors of goodwill between Japan and Asia. And probably, you know, as things develop over the years, that will be reconciled again. And, you know, the very tough memories between Japan and Asia after the war need to come to a point of reconciliation and making through. Saying it as an Israeli. Okay, thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah, okay, and, thank you very much.
Looking forward to have you on the next meeting as well.
Thank you.